Hey, thanks for having me. My name is Fabian. I started a company called Marley Spoon, and what we do is we bring delightful, market-fresh, and easy cooking back to the people. And to me, I don't really understand the supermarket industry that well, at least when I started 2 years ago. So I actually like supermarkets. No? You go in there, you see all this stuff lying around there, like the fresh vegetables, the meat, the fish, everything's there. And you could cook anything you like, theoretically. The funny thing is when I normally leave the supermarket, I always end up cooking the same 2 or 3 things. No? Steak with broccoli or steak with green beans, which is kind of weird because all these things are there. I could cook anything I want. But somehow it didn't do it for me. Anyway, so we started Marley Spoon, and what we were actually surprised to learn a little bit about supermarkets because, as we just saw, most people don't see supermarket as a problem. Well, they say, look, they've been around for 100 years. It's not a problem. Well, the thing is, I believe they're terrible. Supermarkets are actually terrible, and they have to be replaced because there's a couple of things that they do, which I think is problematic. Number one, they make us sick. You wonder, why would supermarkets make us sick? Because when you think about supermarkets, you think about the fresh produce that's lying there that we can just pick. But that's actually not what they do. Actually, that's not how most supermarkets look like. Most supermarkets look like this. No? There's not much fresh stuff lying around there. See, little innocent child grabbing something. So the funny thing is actually, like 2/3 of the shelf space that supermarkets have is just sodas, processed food, sweet stuff. No? So most of the shelf space is actually not about the fresh, the healthy stuff. They sell us all the stuff that's not healthy. And the problem is when you walk into the supermarket, you don't actually know what you want to buy. You don't plan. At least most people, they rush in and they pick something up. And then you actually just, I don't know, is it the frozen pizza or do you have the recipe in your head? And in the end, it's a frozen pizza. You probably wouldn't eat the frozen pizza if you knew what would be in there. So it's actually terrible. No? What they sell us is not making us healthy. In a way, they don't make it easy for us to cook, which is weird because if you want to cook, you go to a supermarket. But they make it very hard for us. So they make us sick, which is annoying. But the worst thing actually is not that they make us sick. They actually destroy our planet. It's really true. They destroy our planet. And the reason why they destroy our planet is this. Looks great, no? All the fresh stuff, the things that jump towards you. And that's what you see when in a supermarket. I think that's the wrong picture, though, that you should associate with a supermarket. I think that is a more realistic picture about what a supermarket is like. No? 30% of the fresh products that supermarkets put out in front of you, they just throw them out. Just gone. Because when you walk into the store, they don't know what you want to cook. So they put everything in front of you because they don't know. The problem is this stuff lasts 3 days. After 3 days, they throw it out. So 30% of the stuff that's actually put in front of you at the supermarket is thrown out. Even worse, 20% of the things that you buy, you also throw out. You have to cook, I don't know, a sauce, celery, you need 2 sticks, and the stuff that you don't need, you just throw it also out. So 20% of what consumers buy is thrown out. So if you put things together, half of what we grow on farms, we just throw it away. 50% of what we grow on farms, we throw it away. And now you think, what has this to do with the planet? It's annoying because it's expensive and somebody has to pay for that. That's true. Well, the annoying part of that is that actually the grocery industry is the largest industry that we have. People spend more money on food than anything else. It's a massive industry. So agriculture is a massive industry also when it comes to the environmental impact. So 70% of the fresh water that we consume on planet Earth, it's not us washing our cars or showering. It's agriculture. 70% of the fresh water goes into agriculture. And like half of the methane emissions that we produce goes also into agriculture. And methane is roughly 30 times more potent as a climate killer compared to CO2. No? The majority of nitrous oxide emissions is also produced by agriculture. And this is like 300 times more potent than CO2. So we've got this massive industry, agriculture, that's very impactful on the planet, on the resources, and there's half of that we just throw out. It's crazy. So I think when it comes to the concept of how do supermarkets help us to cook, it's very wasteful. It's very inefficient. And the reason for that is there's like many steps of this stuff travels. So it goes from the farm to the wholesaler. Sometimes you even have traders that aggregate demand in between the wholesaler and then the distribution center. So then the supermarkets have their distribution centers where they aggregate all these things that they buy, then they ship them to the supermarkets, then you pick it up, and then what you don't use, you throw out as well. So along this supply chain, you have waste everywhere. And no, don't forget, this is fresh produce. It lasts maybe over from being picked to being having to throw it out. It's probably a week, 10 days. So you've got this massive supply chain for a product that's perishable, and you have waste along the whole supply chain. And it's clear why that has to be the case, because unfortunately, the supermarkets, they don't really know what you need when you walk in. So just this information gap makes this a very inefficient industry. But the beauty of when you think about this, of the internet, it actually allows us to understand our customer. We understand what customers will cook. In our case, Marley Spoon makes it easy for people to cook. I'll show you in a second how it works. But the beauty about how we can make people cook is actually without any of the waste. Because when we buy the food, we already know what people will cook. And that actually makes us waste-free. So I think there's a category out there, it's called meal kits. We're not the only company that is making it easy for people to cook using a meal kit. But what all these companies and these businesses have in common, actually, that they're actually waste-free. And the beauty is, so what we do in a way is we make it easy for people to cook, which has two benefits. On the one hand side, if you remember the first thing we spoke about, it makes you healthy. If you cook compared to eating a frozen pizza, it's much more healthy. I was asked the other day on a panel, 50% of US children are obese, and they asked me, what can we do about this? And I think it's a very simple answer, you just cook. Don't make them eat stuff that you pick up, just cook, and you solve the problem right there. But making it easy for people to cook is therefore something that's very valuable, because supermarkets are very hard. They make it very hard to cook. It's also, by the way, not only healthy for your body. There's a study released recently that says families that have a home-cooked dinner have more successful and happy children. Just the ability to speak to each other is valuable. Because when you cook for somebody, you wouldn't go and let people sit in front of the TV. You sit together because you cook for somebody. So making it easy to cook is actually making families healthier. So the beauty of the way meal kits work is, on the one hand side, they make people cook, which is good, and they reduce all the waste. So how does it work? Well, you have chefs that create recipes. In our case, we're operating in 3 regions in Europe, US, and Australia. So we have cooks in all these regions, and they come up with these recipes. And then our customers, they just select what they'd like to cook. And then the following week, we send them a box to their home, and in that box, they have everything they need. The fresh vegetables, the meat, the fish. The only thing that you need actually is salt, pepper, and oil, and 30 minutes, and the rest actually is taken care of. It's what people like about the service. So it's very easy for people every week to cook. And don't forget, most people are busy. There's so many things that you have to take care of in your life. Coming up with what are we going to cook tonight is one thing less to worry about if you have somebody that actually can take care of that. But most importantly, we just shipped you exactly what you need. The celery that I mentioned, we don't ship you the whole celery. We just ship you those 2 sticks. So you don't have any waste. When you get these boxes and open them, you just get exactly the right quantities without waste. And when we buy our food also, we know exactly what we have to ship. So we don't have any waste. So the interesting fact is supermarkets have 30% food waste, and we've got these 50% across the whole supply chain. With these meal kits, the beauty is your food waste is less than 1%. It's really just what you buy is being shipped out at the same day, and customers get the right quantity of food, which makes it much more sustainable than the way supermarkets make people cook. So overall, we believe it's something that makes people happy. Also, it's very yummy. I don't know what you cooked yesterday. If you cooked yesterday, probably not when you were here, when you were traveling. But people with these meal kits, our customers, they cook something easy and light if they want to, something more traditional. And the fun thing is, it's not always the same stuff. It's always something else. It's always fresh. It's always healthy. And sometimes it's something also for the kids. They they don't like healthy, to be honest. Now, sometimes they say, Fabian, not again, Marley spoon. It's too healthy. So we're trying to get less healthy a little bit as well to take care of that. Yes, we have to. Yeah, so I think this is, do we have one more slide? No, we don't have one more slide. That's Marley spoon. Happy to answer a question in regards to meal kits or the supermarket industry. Maybe 4 minutes or so.
So I have some questions up here. How about, will supermarkets be replaced with home delivering or even 3D printing?
So I think that the supermarket question is a very interesting question. So as you know, retail in general is changing a little bit. You know, there was a company a couple of years ago called Borders, which is a book retailer, and they don't exist anymore. You know, they went out of business, and people would never expect it, that they're just gone. But what we see is we see this channel switch, people switching from offline to online. And in the book industry, 30–40% switched to online. So what you have suddenly is you have your existing infrastructure, but your sales go down, and then you're out of business. Now think about supermarkets. Supermarkets operate 5% margin. And when you look at all the industries, they switch from offline to online by various degrees. Fashion, 30% online. Electronics, 40% online. Travel, 50% online. So all the verticals switched from offline to online by 20, 30, 40%. Now imagine if just 10% of grocery sales switch from offline to online, and your margin is 5%, you don't have a business. So I think actually supermarkets will be impacted much more by the channel switch than any other industries. It's just that it sounds weird to say supermarkets will all die, but I think supermarkets having a pretty tough time.
Cool. We also have one about Amazon. What do you think Amazon's acquisition of Whole Foods tells us about the food delivery market? And also, how does Marley Spoon differ from that?
Sure. So Amazon is very interesting, obviously, I think, because Amazon is like the retailer that controls them all, no? The one that rules them all. And I always thought that the defensibility of Amazon, what protects them for competition, is all the fulfillment centers. They have thousands or hundreds of fulfillment centers around the world. And I come to believe and to learn that it's not the fulfillment center that's the moat of Amazon. The moat of Amazon that protects them from competition is the last mile. So what they're trying to do right now is they're trying to replace FedEx, DHL, UPS. They just want to get away with them and build them themselves. So they have the last mile. Well, there's one thing you need for a last mile. You need frequency. So Walmart, 20 years ago, they went into food to get frequency, get people into the stores, to sell them stuff. So what Amazon has understood is they don't want groceries and fresh to make money. They just need it for the frequency, to utilize the last mile. Because the last mile to the customer is what they want to build to actually fend off any form of competition. So therefore, I believe it's pretty scary when Amazon, which is known to operate for 10 years in the space without needing to make any money, starts to go into that space. And they started 10 years ago with their fresh efforts, and now you see Amazon Fresh more and more and more. But it's much slower than they thought, so it's much harder for them. And we know a little bit because we also sell Marley Spoon on Amazon Fresh in the US. So we're the only meal kit you can actually buy on Amazon. As we learn from these guys that it's very hard for them to scale. And so what I believe the acquisition of Whole Foods is two things. I think they want to understand about fresh, because fresh is strategic. It's the largest vertical of consumer spending. People spend more money on food than anything else. So Amazon wants to own that part. But also I think they need scale. No, they need scale for their own backend infrastructure that they're building right now, which is quite interesting because when they started, they initially tried to put their fresh products into their existing fulfillment centers, and it failed. And they're now building separate infrastructure, separate fulfillment centers, separate line hauls, just for fresh. And for this, they need scale. So I think Whole Foods is just a customer for their own backend that they're building. So to me, it shows Amazon is committed into groceries. They push harder and harder, which is a problem for all supermarkets. Luckily, we are not a supermarket, we're not a retailer, we are a brand. And therefore, for us, it's very good, because if Amazon sells you food, then suddenly buying food online is not crazy anymore. And suddenly, it's much easier to also use a service for your cooking. So I think for us, it fuels the channel switch, and it makes it easier for people to use meal kits. So actually, I'm very excited about it.
Very cool. And there's a couple more questions about USPs. I'm not sure if we really have time for it. Any shout out why?
Sure. I mean, look, we're not the only meal kit company in the space. There's many others, which is a good signal. It means people like the service, otherwise these companies wouldn't exist. To me, the thing is, all these companies out there, Blue Apron is a US one, there's also a company called HelloFresh, there's us, we're actually all the same size. We're all the same size. If you think about Whole Foods, it's a $15 billion business, 15 billion in sales. Their market share is less than 1%. So if a company has 15 billion in sales, and then you compare a Marley Spoon and a Blue Apron and others, suddenly we're all the same size, because groceries, it's a $900 billion industry, is unbelievably large, and everybody in the space has a fraction of a percentage right now. So I feel like all these meal kit companies, they offer a similar solution. Of course, I believe we are the best, and there's some reasons for me to believe that, but that's not the point. I think we can make people cook better than the supermarket, and I think there'll be multiple brands that establish themselves.
Thank you very much. That's perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.